Hello and welcome back to the Villa podcast. It is the evening after the night before, and I am here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how you doing, mate? Again, it's another late night Villa coming a bit too regular at this point, and it's not really because of scheduling issues. To be quite honest, Dan, is it? It's more we need to take time with these ones, don't we?
Yeah, we do, mate. We do. I mean, I've got two. I always sit down to do this podcast, usually with a glass of water. And over there's a bottle of Jameson, which I might feel might be more appropriate. A, for the late night theme, and B, for the nature of the conversation. Because yeah, God, mate, wow, it's a depressing time in the Twitter sphere above all else, isn't it? And that's usually, that's we sort of just spoke before we came on air. It's like, yeah, we could talk until the cows come home yesterday about the goals and why we conceded and all that sort of stuff. But we were sort of, I was saying that the conversation feels a bit broader than that. I didn't really come online to see too many people talking about positional errors or individual mistakes or problems with the team sheet. There were a few, but the problems seem to be more about the direction of the club, who's the right man to lead it forward, whether we're playing the right, all these sort of questions, which sort of every club asks itself in fairness when you lose 4 on the bounce, which is not something we actually did. I read in the season which we came up, in which we avoided relegation only by the skin of our teeth. We never lost 4 games in a row. It's a feat that we've achieved for the first time since being promoted. And it's caused I suppose it's justified, but something of a meltdown, hasn't it, mate?
Yeah, it has. And I think I read as well online, this is the first time we've shipped more than 3 goals in 3 consecutive games since 2012. Think about how depressing it was being a Villa fan back then. I feel like we're in this almost completely manufactured situation, Dan, whereby there is an insane amount of pressure solely from, I want to say, a vocal minority of Villa fans, but I'm starting to feel like that's growing as the days go on and as the performances like we'd seen yesterday keep happening. It really does feel like Dean Smith is under a lot of pressure. And if I'm honest, to me at least, it didn't seem that way until full time yesterday. I think there are some glaring issues that we kind of we'd seen little bits of, and we've had things try and paper over the cracks. We've heard about Sanson's little tiff at Arsenal, which I think he's right to be frustrated with the way he's been treated. And yeah, just to kind of reiterate what you said, Dan, just there, this is probably going to be sort of 25 minutes of a holistic look at what is wrong at Aston Villa right now, because there is a lot that is wrong. And of course, this is not, we're not in the know. This is guesswork. This is essentially just us, sort of speaking our mind on the situation and picking up on certain things. We're seeing things like body language experts get involved, Dan, and that's how you know shit's getting serious. But we, as I say, we've kind of seen things bubble over at Arsenal with Sanson, and as well we heard about Tyrone and Courtney having a little fallout in the tunnel on that day as well. Again, these are all sort of alleged things. Just to reiterate that, not that the club would sue us, but we don't want to be spreading misinformation. This is just what we're seeing online, which of course you take with a grain of salt. And we've seen little kickouts and frustrations from Emiliano Buendia as well, the club record transfer. And this man has severely struggled to get involved in the starting 11. And when he has done, he's not played in his favoured position again, which is something you kind of have to question. I think the first thing that worries me, Dan, and I want to talk about Morgan Sanson first, because again, I feel like we have to tread lightly with this situation, because whilst I can completely understand Morgan Sanson's frustrations and seeing a 19-year-old Jacob Ramsey get the nod ahead of him, and I mean, Jacob vindicated Dean's decision by scoring an absolute worldie at Arsenal, and his performances nevertheless have been, fairly good when Jacob has played. Morgan Sanson's, he's joined the side for £14 million in January. He's not been getting the game time that he would have liked, he would have envisaged. He's left a team that are, playing semi-regular Champions League football at a good level. Obviously, Marseille had their problems in France, lots of riots and stuff about the ownership. But Morgan Sanson has left a Champions League playing club to come to Aston Villa to get game time, to kick on, to believe in this project that we have all we've all spoke at length about. And he's not getting a look in. And again, I think we have to kind of be careful and consider the fact, listen, he's had the injuries. You can understand he's going to be so frustrated, but that's kind of where I probably empathise with Dean a bit in this situation, because you don't want to pick a man who's, not long ago tweaked something. He was injured at Chelsea, so he's had a few weeks off after that. It just seems like it can't get started for him. But then, I look at this situation and what does it remind me of, Dan? It reminds me totally of the Bjorn Engels situation that we had, in our first season back, where he wasn't happy with playing free at the back, Bjorn, and reportedly that was it. Then he was completely done for and frozen out. And I think that's something we have to maybe question, Dan. I think we've always kind of had Dean down as a mix between a man manager and tactician. And at the moment, I'm severely doubting his ability to do both, mate.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, mate. Is like, look, Dean Smith has never. You're right. Dean Smith has never convinced me as an outright tactician. There's been I would struggle to name a Villa game off the top of my head where I've been like, the Gaffer's system has won us that game. The Gaffer's changed in formation. The Gaffer's, whether we've altered something, whether it's totally systematic that's gone on to win this game, I would struggle to. But one thing I will say is that we've seen plenty of players enter the club and either leave or be currently playing at a much, much higher standard than they were when they entered. And I think that's Dean Smith's strength, is that he's the man manager, I would say. I think when that starts to fail and you start to see cracks in that on a quite regular basis, that's when, for me, look, I'm not going to sit on this podcast and say I'm Dean in or Dean out. I'm not really any manager in or out. I don't really have an opinion. All I said throughout the entirety of the first season was, if it gets really bad, you have to question these things. If it's like, I would love Dean to I don't want to sack the manager. I want Dean to stay in and turn it around, but we have to face realities. And I think, whilst it's not that time yet, I think we're still a few games, definitely, at least, from that time. The Sanson situation worries me, because if it was a Trezeguet, no disrespect to these players, if it was a Trezeguet or a Keenan Davis or someone of that ilk, a Jed Steer that's fringe, that it wouldn't mind. But when you're playing games like yesterday, when we can't play through the midfield, this was a problem for the whole 90 minutes. We missed Douglas Luiz so badly. And to be fair, I do think, I'll give Dean his dues, I think this is partially because JJ got injured. The substitution that came after that injury, I don't even want to talk about. But you have Sanson, who must be looking at the pitch when he's on the bench thinking, that you need me. Like, this is why it must be so frustrating for him, because it's like, you want someone you can pass to in the midfield that can take it on the half turn and pick out a winger or slide a ball through for a striker, or even, God forbid, beat a man. It's like, that's his game. And that's why I think it must be, A, especially frustrating for him, and B, it's frustrating for me as a Villa fan, because I want to see Sanson. I've been saying this guy could really be what we need. Like, he's the archetypal player that could fix our problems in terms of playing through the midfield that have hindered us for so many games. And that's why I think it's frustrating when the manager and his own little beefs or personal quarrels, whatever the reasons may be, however justified, when they start negatively impacting the team, as I fear they're starting to do now, that's when there's cause for concern.
Yeah, and again, it's one of them ones. It's like, as you say, Jacob Ramsey is so unfortunate to roll his ankle in the way he does yesterday, and to bring on, again, and this isn't us digging out Ashley Young. He didn't have a particularly amazing game, in my opinion. But to bring on a 36-year-old, winger converted left back in central midfield in a game where West Ham have one less man than you in that position. They play with Rice and they play with Soucek as the two holders. So and we know how effective they are as well. So them two are just as good as any three in the league. It is completely fair to say. You have to play your better players. You have to tweak the system to get the most out of them. And Ashley Young almost played in this sort of I don't even know how to describe the position he played in, Dan. It was chaotic. And I think that the problem with that is, and we've spoken about this many times, Dan, is he's got a problem. Well, we kind of think there's a lack of trust in the players he's got. We've gone and we've spent the best part of £100 million over summer, and Buendia hasn't won him over yet. When the last time he was in the Premier League, had the fourth most chances created in the whole season, only behind our own Jack Grealish at the time, Kevin De Bruyne, and Trent Alexander-Arnold. So this is a man who can make things happen. Should you play him in the right positions? And it took us so long to even just see Leon Bailey as well, Dan, didn't it? I mean, again, lack of managing that injury very well. I think that's something you've got to seriously look at as well. And as well, I'm not D now. I'm fully Dean in, just to be clear. But we're having an open and transparent discussion for you guys, for the sake of you guys at home. I feel like we have to. I feel like I have to be clear on my stance. I think Dean can turn it around. I'm putting a lot of faith in Dean getting his act together and turning this around for us. But the signs aren't very good at the moment, Dan, are they? And what's worrying as well is how low the XG is. Now, you guys know I absolutely, I'm a nutter for it. But we're 17th in the XG table the whole season so far. How many games have we in, Dan? Are we 10 games in now? And with that low, it's seriously worrying now. We've managed to score some goals here and there, which is obviously what you want. And listen, you shouldn't take XG as gospel. But not only are we not sort of creating chances that are good enough to warrant a high XG, Villa is shipping a load of goals, Dan. This is a side that kept 17 clean sheets last season, and we felt the need to change systems to accommodate players, to bend ourselves so as we can make tactical changes against the top six, and sometimes they work at Manchester United and against Everton, and if anything, the past few games have shown that they haven't. But for me, Dan, the exact that defensive cohort, the 5 players, including the goalkeeper, that kept those clean sheets last season. Why do you change that? Why do you change that? And for the longest time, just to finish, Dan, we on this podcast we question the role of John Terry. I feel like I'm starting to understand maybe what he was doing. Not only just for the defense as well, which we know he took, but that sort of transition between the midfield as well, Dan, getting the ball forward. See, John Terry was a midfielder before he was a defender, so we all know about his ball playing capabilities. So he would have, surely have had an influence on the sort of the style and the way that Villa, really looked to move between the thirds.
Yeah, we're a humble pie for both of us, I think, there, mate. Yeah. We were fucking comparing this man to Dwight Schrute not long ago, and now look where we are. It's a tricky one, man. It really is, because you, in hindsight, and God is a wonderful thing, especially on fan-led podcasts. But the warning signs have been there. You look at Richard O'Kelly walking out with 2 weeks to go, if that. Week and a half, 2 weeks. Someone let me know. But that kind of time frame before the start of the season, and you're like, At the time, it was like, okay, that's a bit weird, but we'll be okay. We got shaky and all that. And now it's like, that's bizarre. And these sort of things that are now becoming sort of quite telling, I suppose, maybe. And this is the thing. This is the thing, is that the telltale signs that things are beginning to enter quite dire straits are there. Yesterday is the first time I've heard calls for the manager's head in the ground. You see them all the time on social media. It's easy to get home and tweet #Smith out. And anyone can do that. Yesterday is the first time I've heard people say it in the stadium. And that's a tough, you're really up against it then. And I think, the one thing with Dean is I heard him say after the game, and you see in his presser, he was like, players win games, not systems. And that's a cop out. You can't put it any other way. I mean, when you've got a disgruntled dressing room, it's a bizarre tactic to put the pressure on them, to put the blame on. And he didn't. I'm not saying he shifted the blame in his whole press because he didn't. All post match, that it was. But that one line where it's like, systems don't win games; it's players that win games, and it's like, in the current day and age, I don't think that's necessarily true. You look at teams like, funnily enough, West Ham, who have a playing squad of similar ability to ours, but playing a system that has put them in the quite comfortably now in a European spot, now in the Champions League places. It's the system that's doing things for West Ham, and it's like, after all oppositions, that rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. And when you've sort of got that blame shifting and the players not wanting to shoulder the responsibility, you drop Tyrone as well, which is like that's a big call, especially if you then go and ship 4 goals. And I know he was on the pitch for 2 of them, but I mean, you bench your captain and the one of the lads. I mean, Ezri as well, man. He looks a shadow of the player he was last season. I came away from every game last season, mate, thinking, God, Ezri was great today. I can't remember once I've done it this season. And it's like, I'm not putting blame on the lads, but this is what's worrying me, is that the guys that are standout players that are now sort of washing out into sort of mediocrity a little bit. We're sort of questioning Emi Martinez now, like, could he save these? And it's like, these are players who you would bet your house on last season that now are starting to be causes, not for concern. I'm not saying that at all, mate, but you can't necessarily guarantee what you're going to expect from them anymore. And it's like, when that's happening and you sort of got this blame shifting, and you've lost 4, and I know you've lost 4 games, and it's all because of that, but the manner of the defeats as well, mate. This is, the last thing I want to say on this is that it's not like we're just losing games. There's been so many games. You look at Watford, you look at Spurs, you look at the last 2 home games. These are games where we've just been not bad, but dire. Chelsea away. It's like we're losing by quite big scorelines now, and it's like, Friday night's a big day. It really is.
It is, and Southampton, it's going to be tough, and to kind of come back on Dean. I think on the final thing on Dean, and you just mentioned it there, Dan, dropping your captain. To me, that says everything, man. Dean brought Tyrone into the club on loan initially, and he then, sort of earned himself that transfer, £27.5 million, worth every penny, in my opinion. And you've backed him. You made him your sort of vice captain. Again, I hate to constantly bring it up, but when I was in the grounds last season, Dan, all I can hear is Tyrone Mings. I can't say enough how important it is to have this man on the pitch as a leader. And not even just that. It's just sometimes people, I think some people can play football, but that's all they can do. You need someone who's a motivator, and if we're honest, at times this season, Tyrone has lacked that. I think we've seen how easily Villa got sort of bamboozled by Wolves. You look at Mings there and you think, come on, we need you to pick the lads up. If we're being completely honest, but the fact he's dropped his captain down suggests that there are so many other problems that we don't even, haven't even come up to the surface. But just to talk about the sort of the style of Villa, which I think is important, because I think to kind of try and put a positive spin on it, Dan, so far this season, Aston Villa have had sort of 18 direct attacks. Now I'm looking at sort of the sequence style that Villa are playing, and that currently has them ranked in 9th in the table for that. So what does that tell you? That tells you that, we're not a team that passes the ball around particularly a lot, which we never were before Jack Grealish anyway. We're looking at sort of, we're averaging 2.79 passes per sequence, Dan. It's a 1-2-3 run with the ball type thing for Villa. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think when the sort of attack, these direct attacks that I'm referring to, the 18, are as high as they are, and the expected goals for has us actually in 15th, I believe, Dan. Yeah, 15th, with the 0.32 so far for the season. Villa are pretty much doing what they were doing last season. They're just not able to score, which is somewhat frustrating. But when you're looking at other statistics, like more than 10 passes in a sequence, Villa have only done that 50 times this season. Passes per sequence, again, to only have 2.79 on average, we saw it so many times the other day, Dan, didn't we? That's Martinez to House, back to Martinez, hoofball, and Villa don't have possession. That's your sequence. We saw that so many times. So what does that tell you? As you referred to earlier, Dan, we need someone who can play through the middle of the park. And listen, whatever personal agendas there are, I feel like they have to be put aside, Dan. They do, because it's glaringly obvious, and it was. Dan, how many fucking transfer rumor podcasts did we do with midfielders, and how often were we, profusely saying Villa need a midfielder, Villa need a destroyer, Villa need a player to play between the lines, Villa need to replace Jack Grealish, Villa need to do it. It all comes back to the midfield, Dan. And the midfield ultimately offers the defence the protection. And I think last season what we're seeing is, obviously, with someone like Grealish, who naturally has more of the ball, other players didn't necessarily have to do that work. Now, a spotlight is, I don't want to say unfairly, being shined on them, because let's be honest, they all need to stand up and make themselves accounted for, Dan. But it's a glaringly obvious issue that we had. And this is going to kind of take us, come around to the sort of recruitment and perhaps the strategy. And when you see, Dan, that we pursued Smith Rowe as hard as we did, only to get knocked back 3 or 4 times, and then him scored a winner against us the other day. And to see how hard we pursued James Ward-Prowse, only for him to be rewarded with a new 5-year contract, I can't help but feel like those signings are not Johan Langer signings. We saw it last season with the issues with the conflict of interest between Suso and Purslow. Suso may have signed Boya Baston, which, my God, that man cannot be forgiven for. But Christian Purslow pushed for Danny Drinkwater, and Christian Purslow also pushed for Ross Barkley. And look at how them transfers backfired on us, Dan.
Yep, well, you're right, mate. And this you've brought me to a really nice point, mate. And it's like, at this point, if you want to say Smith out, fair enough. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. Who am I to put my opinion? If you want to say that, fair enough. But if you're going to say that, you've got to, for me, give me a valid replacement. So it's like, okay, put yourself in Perslow's seat. It's like, okay, we've sacked Dean Smith, fair enough. You've got your wish. Who are you going to go and get? Because look, the thing is like, there's a lot of quite progressive, exciting managers out there. I feel like, realistically, unless you're going to go for a Frank Lampard or an Eddie Howe, or I think a certain manager just got sacked from Newcastle, that Villa might be interested in. You could go for a Fonseca or a Lucien Favre. There's those kind of managers out there, and mate, if you want to see progressive football, they will give it you, but don't expect the goal to shore up. It's like, it's not an easy call. It's like, okay. And this was, I was actually going to tweet this off the account earlier, but I didn't want to be an instigator for a Smith out sort of brigade. It's sort of like, if you want to say Smith out, fine. I get it. There's plenty of reasons for it, but you've got to then be like, okay, I want Smith out and I want this guy in. And all the Villa dads are going, I know I'm going to say this, I'm going to say, oh yeah, just go and get Pep. Yeah. All of the those deluded Villa fans that thought we were going to get Dybala a few seasons ago, they'll come out as woodworking, like, yeah, just go and get Pep. But that's the thing, mate, is that with sacking the manager and replacing players and buying players. Okay, it's all very well and good. You said, the Villa fans are going to be like, we need a new this, we need a new that, we need a new manager, we need a midfielder. It's like, okay, well then, instead of just adding to the hysteria, let's try and put ourselves in the shoes of the decision maker. It's like, okay, sacking Dean Smith is not only a monumental decision because no Villa manager in my lifetime has put as much of a footprint on a club as Dean has. And this is a tough act to follow, regardless of how it ends. It's a tough act to follow. It's like replacing him with a man that doesn't give us a transition period, because I'm fed up of seeing transition periods of Villa that can kick on. It's not an easy job to do, mate. And I feel like hopefully we don't have to see the board make that decision, but for the fans that want them to have to make that, I urge you, I'd like to see, if we can get some discussions going in the comments or whatever about who exactly do you see coming in, because it's that's a tough, the Villa job at the best of times is tough, but to come in after Dean and try and pick these lads up, I mean, it's not going to be easy.
It's not, mate. And like to kind of reiterate your point, who do you get? Who comes in 10 games in right now? And to everyone who was to all the deluded ones that were even contemplating Villa managing to get Conte and pinning Suarez and Eden's ambitions solely on us getting Conte, and if we didn't, then they're not ambitious owners. Have you not just seen the horror show of a month with us playing three at the back? You seriously want to get a guy who exclusively plays 3-4-3 in Antonio Conte, who, let's be honest, fantastic manager, short term for the very least. Looking like he's Tottenham bound by the time this is out, he probably is at Tottenham. And again, another name that's constantly being thrown about. Graham Potter plays a back three. He plays a back three more often than not, guys. And this play 4-2-3-1 that everyone's been shouting, including myself, because it's the formation we should be playing. When you're like, I feel like I don't know, maybe some people aren't as informed. Maybe, and listen, this isn't me saying Graham Potter is by any means a bad manager, but what's Graham Potter done that Dean Smith hasn't done, Dan? They're cut from the same cloth. They're managers that idealistically play progressive and attacking football. Now, we've kind of put all of our eggs in one basket, getting Dean in the Championship, and give him this sort of promotion or bust scenario, where really, I mean, he probably had another season in the Championship. If he didn't get us out after a full season, then he's probably gone. And this is, I mean, everyone, people in the comments who are Smith out will go, oh, look, he's bringing up the fact that he got us promoted straight away and stayed up, and then we nearly got to Europe. But there has been clear progression. Now, this season, of course, we've stagnated. Villa are nowhere near their best. Signings haven't integrated. Obviously, there's all these problems behind the scenes that we're kind of alluding to as well. But what does sacking the manager 10 games into a season do? You at least have to, and I feel like even if you ask me, in fact, you have to acknowledge that Dean is owed the full season, because there's nobody available right now as well. As you said, Dan, who do you go and get? There's no one available. If you think that Steven Gerrard or Frank Lampard can do the job at Villa, you're completely and utterly deluded. Steven Gerrard doesn't even walk into a Championship job with what he's done at Rangers. He doesn't. I mean, I'm sure Scott will disagree with me, Dan, but there's no way Steven Gerrard gets a Premier League job. It's too much of a gamble. At least Frank Lampard has proven himself in the Premier League. But saying that, he had one of the most expensive squads in the league and some of the most talented youngsters coming through the academy that he had to rely on as well. We saw Frank Lampard's managerial capabilities at Derby County. We beat them 10-1 on fucking aggregate. You want that man in charge of our football club? Come on. As I say, come at us with sensible suggestions. Let's not just have the blinkers on. Villa have lost 4 in a row. It's horrific. I'm hurting just as much as everyone else is. But to go Smith out, you're absolutely kidding yourself long term. We've invested in a project. At the end of the season, if there isn't a notable improvement on the 11th place finish from last season, then let's have this discussion. But for me personally, Dan, right now, I'm not Smith out. I'm not. I don't really know what else to say on that. I feel like I've made it completely clear my position.
Yeah, look, it's one of those where, mate, like you have to consider how bad we were in that first season in the Premier League, and if we didn't make the change then, we're probably not going to make it now. As I said, Dean's still got a long time in my book before the board is one thing, the fan base think about it, but the board, that's a completely different matter altogether. But whilst I will say that, mate, and whilst I will say that, the next 3 games for me, there has to be. I mean, we've got Southampton, Brighton, and Crystal Palace, and if we don't get through that with a good points, after that we go Man City, Leicester, and Liverpool, and that could get really sour. That could get really, really sour. So these next 3 games are crucial for me, because it's like, if we go and stutter our way through these games and get 2 points, then you realistically, if we could, every chance in the world we play Leicester, Liverpool, and Man City and lose through all 3 games. Well, no, that's not a that's a very real possibility. Just like, and then all of a sudden you're looking at 2 points from, what is that together, like 10 games, and that's when it's like, okay, that's real now. So these next 3 games are absolutely crucial, mate. We've got a quick turnaround, which can sometimes help, can sometimes hinder. I actually feel like getting away from Villa Park is a good thing. I'm glad it's an away game. And yeah, I mean, you guys will be coming to you on Friday night or Saturday morning, mate. And hopefully the tone of the podcast is a better one.
Hopefully, mate. And it's just one of them ones, isn't it? I feel like I saw an interesting tweet earlier. 2019 almost get relegated, but we stay up with no fans in the ground. 2020 European push, no fans in the ground, and 2021, look at where we are now with a full house. So I think it's time for some self-reflection as well, guys. We have to check ourselves. There's a guy who sits like front row of the whole, and you can see him every game. And he gives dogs abuse to the opposition. He does probably sometimes to Villa players as well, the way he gives it out. Why do we need to do that? I'm all up for a bit of banter and that, but like someone threw a lighter at Fabianski from the lower Holt when they scored the third, and like, first of all, that's a fucking disgrace. I'm sorry. That is completely not acceptable. I don't care if we lose 10-0. You do not throw anything on the pitch at players. You do not. I mean, it's a fucking criminal offence. I don't need to say anymore. But like, Fabianski wasn't even goading the fans. He didn't celebrate. He didn't jump up. He literally looked around like, come on. He's handled that fucking brilliantly, all things considered. Because if that was me, I'd be in the stands, mate. I'd be taking his head off. And that guy was getting dogs abuse for literally doing nothing. Like, I mean, if we're being real, he should have saved the goal that we scored as well. So you should, if anything, you should be fucking thankful that Fabianski flopped it for the goal that Watkins scored. But no, I had to mention that because that was completely disgusting. And if you sit in L4 and you know who it was, let us know, because that's just not on. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people poured out as well, which I don't really blame. There's been a lot of talk online about it, whether it was a toxic atmosphere or not. And a lot of people brought up a lot of valid points. Players were still clapped at full time. People were still singing for the players, myself included. Booing the players and the manager, it just don't sit with me, mate. I just can't do it. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel. I think the big thing for me is we're all Villa. It's like, we're one big family. It's a community, and with all this sort of infighting and booing and not supporting the team, when in times where they need it most, I'm sorry, that just doesn't sit right with me. So, listen, you are entitled to boo. This is a very long, convoluted way of me saying I didn't boo the players. I wasn't particularly a massive fan of the sort of atmosphere at the game. I brought Charlotte with me, so that was a great one. So she won't be coming to another big game ever again because we lost 4-1. And yeah, I mean, let's just hope we can turn it around, mate. But just one final thing from me on them fixtures, I completely appreciate what you're saying. These are all must-win games. But, you know, we have to have the context. Brighton had a fantastic start this season. Crystal Palace have just beaten Manchester City 2-0 and are looking very good under Patrick Vieira. Under normal circumstances, where Villa are still picking up points here, there and everywhere, a loss or a draw to either of these sides, it's not the end of the world. But given the context of the situation we are in right now, on paper, these are teams that we should be beating. But I don't want that to get lost on people that these are going to be tough games. We have to reiterate that, Dan. Like, none of these are going to be walks in the park, even if Villa are playing as good as we, sort of hyped them up to be throughout the whole of the summer, Dan. These are going to be incredibly tough games. And just the final thing from me, mate, is just like Dean and the players right now, more than anything, they need your support, regardless of whether you're Smith in, Mings out, Smith out, whatever the fuck you are. I don't care. We've just got to back the lads at this point, mate.
100%, mate. 100%.
So, I think that kind of ends our therapy session, Dan. To any of you guys listening and watching, honestly, especially if you've made it to this point, you guys are the real MVPs. I mean, Dan, we recently passed 5,700 subs. 4,700 subs. Look at me adding a fucking 1,000 on. What am I doing?
Cheeky.
If we can get to 5,000 by the end of the season, that would be absolutely amazing. We've got some cool stuff lined up for a giveaway. So if you're listening to this and you're not subscribed, please do, and make sure you hit the bell notification so you never miss a podcast, whether it's straight after the game or 2 days after the game. We will be here.
Not at all.
Well, not at all. I mean, if we get done 10-0, there is no podcast. We're saying that right now. So yeah, if you enjoyed this sort of therapy, convoluted rant, just look at what is going on at Villa right now. Make sure you hit the like button. Comment your thoughts below on the situation. Let us know your thoughts and subscribe for more content. Up the Villa.